Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I am Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health. And in the crazy world of the crazy medical profession, things get crazier and crazier. We've all heard about the Veterans Administration and the bad stuff that's happening there just because of bureaucracy, right? They can't figure out their own paper trail. They can't treat patients appropriately. They can't treat patients. They can't treat veterans in a timely manner. And, I could argue that this is not a bad thing because when they do treat patients, the treatments that they use are outdated, old-fashioned, allopathic, reductionistic nonsense. Dr. Wallach, a veteran of the armed forces, a colonel in the Air Force, has said many times, and rightly so, that there are 2 times you can give your life for your country, on the battlefield and at the VA. But nonetheless, right, the wheels of justice move slowly and government changes one funeral at a time. But guess what they just did? They elected, or they're considering, he's, it's Senate hearings right now, he's unopposed, to have a new director of the Food and Drug Administration. I forget the man's name, but he was the past CEO of Procter & Gamble. Now, you may wonder why that's a bad idea, because around the turn of the 20th century, Procter & Gamble made a deal with the American Heart Association. Procter & Gamble made a deal with the American Heart Association. The American Heart Association was a branch of I don't know if they're related to the American Medical Association, right? But the American Heart Association was a standalone professional entity, and they were struggling. They didn't have any funding. They didn't really have any clout. They didn't have any representation. They were struggling, bumping along. Well, Procter & Gamble came along and gave them a sweetheart deal. They gave them, I think, $1.5 million. And in return, the American Heart Association promoted the use of Crisco. They promoted the use of Crisco, which Procter & Gamble owned. Crisco, of course, a nasty trans fat, which causes heart disease, which causes clogged arteries, and which used to be used as a machine lubricant. But Procter & Gamble said, oh, no, we've got all this stuff, and we need to sell it, and we need to move it. And so they made a sweetheart deal with the American Heart Association in the early 1900s, and the American Heart Association started saying, oh, you guys got to use this stuff. So this is why we switched from lard and butter to margarine and Crisco. Right? Remember, that's what you grew up with, right? Isn't that what your parents said? You got to, remember when your parents threw their lard and butter out? I remember when mine did. I remember when we switched to margarine. I remember cans of Crisco in the house, no problemo. Well, this, of course, led to an accelerated generation of heart disease in the United States, and now heart disease is either the number 1 or the number 2 leading cause of death in the United States. I think it's number 2. Leading cause of death, MD-directed medical therapeutics. Second leading cause of death, heart disease. Third leading cause of death, cancer, right? So, medical doctors kill more people than cancer, and medical doctors kill more people than heart disease, and go figure. But we have our heads so far stuck in the sand that we don't know what's going on. And so the person who was, I don't know if this guy was responsible for it, but his company was, Procter & Gamble, responsible indirectly for millions of cases of heart disease, is now going to head the Veterans Administration and, oversee the delivery of medical treatments to our veterans. And if that isn't putting the fox in charge of the hen house, I do not know what is. But this is the way that it goes in Crazy Town, and this is where we currently live, Crazy Town. And it's not just the USA, it's Canada, it's the European Union, it's South America, it's Africa, China, Japan. It is everywhere. The world medical market is dominated, hook, line, and sinker, by the pharmaceutical industry. And again, it's not the gun, it's how it's used. It's not the drug, it's how it's used. We're not against drugs. You can use drugs to heal people. You can use drugs appropriately. I mean, every time I go to the dentist, I thank God for Novocaine. I mean, don't you? I thank God for Novocaine every time I go to the dentist. Drugs, when they're used appropriately, are good things. Drugs, when they are used inappropriately, well, you know, facts are a stubborn thing. They are, in fact, the leading cause of death in the United States. And along these lines, I want to bring a little levity into the conversation here. I want to read you an email that I got today from my father-in-law-to-be. Today I swung my front door wide open and placed my Remington 30-06 right in my doorway. I left 6 shells beside it and then left it alone and went about my business. While I was gone, the mailman delivered my mail, the neighbor boy across the street mowed the yard, a girl walked her dog down the street, and quite a few cars stopped at the stop sign near the front of our house. After about an hour, I checked on the gun. It was still sitting there right where I had left it. It hadn't moved itself outside. It certainly hadn't killed anyone, even with the numerous opportunities it had been presented to do so. In fact, it hadn't even loaded itself. Well, you can imagine my surprise with all the media hype about how dangerous guns are and how they kill people. Either the media is wrong or I'm in possession of the laziest gun in the world. Well, I'm off to check on my spoons. I hear they're making people fat. Get it? Got it? Good. It ain't the gun, it's how it's used. It ain't the drug, it's how it's used. The way that MDs use drugs, the leading cause of death in the United States, the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, and I would assume if we were to crunch these numbers in the European Union, it would be the same. I would assume if we were to crunch these numbers in Canada, it would be the same. For goodness sake, in the great province of Alberta, they spend nearly $50 million a day to prop up the medical system, which is failing. $50 million a day. This amounts to somewhere between 40 and 50% of their budget. Between 40 and 50% of their tax revenue dollars go towards propping up a failed medical system. So why on earth doesn't the government of Canada embrace longevity? If they did, you know how many billions of dollars they would save every year? Why doesn't the government of the United States embrace longevity? Why doesn't the government of the United States make it mandatory to license naturopathic medicine in all 50 states? Why doesn't the government of Canada make it mandatory to license naturopathic medicine in all of the provinces and all of the cities in Canada? Why don't they do that? Because they're in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. And they don't give a crap about your health. Or, you know, if they do, they have been hoodwinked and brainwashed by Big Pharma into believing that the only way down the medical highway is the MD's way. And every other way is, you know, a bad way, a dangerous way. And they're wrong. And we suffer because of it. We suffer all of the time because of it. And we need to do something. I mean, we really need to do something here. So, I'm pleading with you. That's not the right word. I'm passionately asking for your help. I am passionately asking for your help. If you have been listening to this show and you are on the fence about longevity, then talk to the person who invited you to this radio show. Talk to the person who told you about this radio show and get them to explain to you the nuts and bolts of the longevity business opportunity. If you found this radio show on your own, then get in touch with my team. Go to my website, click on the Join Team Glidden button, and someone from my organization will call you up and get with you and talk to you and answer any of the questions that you have about what we're up to here. There's 2 ways that you can interface with us. You can just talk to us about health recovery, and we'll give you advice for free about what you can do to nutritionally support your body, and that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. We'll also tell you about the business opportunity. These two things are mutually exclusive. You don't have to do both. You can do one and not the other. But I'm requesting, I'm encouraging, I am gently persuading, hopefully, you to get on board with the business opportunity offered by Longevity, because this is the way that we're going to change the world. We will pay you. Well, we won't pay you, but Longevity will pay you. Longevity will pay you to help us spread the message of health recovery through science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. Because if you're waiting around for the government to do it for you, you're going to be waiting for a long, long, long time. If you're in the chat room here watching the live feed, I want you to make a promise to yourself. I want you to promise to yourself that you're going to invite 10 people to this radio program every day. You're going to invite 10 people to this radio program every day. We have 43 people in the house right now. If 43 people invited 10 people, we'd have 473 people in the house tomorrow. And then the next day, we'd have 4,700. We'd have a lot of people. This is what's going to need to happen in order for this word to populate, in order for this word to spread, in order for this to reach the next level. We must be active, politely active, with sophistication, simple enrollments. I know a doctor that says you don't have to suffer with that. No kidding. Here, I'm going to give you a link to this radio program. I'm going to be there in the chat room. I can't wait to see you there, too. It's tomorrow at 3 o'clock Central Time. It's going to be really great. Can't wait till you're there. That's all you have to do. 10 people a day. 10 people you can have that conversation with, then you are on the road to success. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hang together. Let's lift each other up. Like the fella said, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. I am your steadfast advocate for health, and I'll be back going to talk to Mary in Oregon after these messages. Stick around. Put up the picture there for those of you on the live stream of our good friend from Miami, Abiezer Moody, who has had one of the top 10 testimonials I've ever heard in longevity. Such a remarkable transformation in that man's life. Thank God for Dr. Wallach. Let's go to Oregon now and see what Mary's up to. Hey, Mary, thanks for the phone call. You are live.
One time, a while ago, I can't call very often, you asked if people knew of some good-tasting gluten-free beers.
Oh, my God. Do you have a list for me?
I hope so.
Let me get my pencil out. I am ready to rock and roll here, Mary. God bless you. So what do you got for me?
Well, the reason I say I hope so is because they're brewers are the ones that say they're gluten-free, and we might disagree, but they are good. I can tell you that much. They're really good.
Okay.
One is Omission.
Omission. Oh, that's an interesting name, right? I like that. Yeah.
And their gluten-free IPA is a very good-tasting beer.
Nice.
It's brewed with malted barley, specially crafted to be gluten-free.
Yep.
Their CEO is a longtime celiac.
Oh, really?
And he claims that it has less than 20 parts per million.
Gotta love it. I'm good with that. No problemo there.
Okay, great. All right. Now, I was told at one time it was only available in Oregon, so that could be changing, I've also heard.
Well, thank God for the Internet, right? I mean, this is one of the wonders of the Internet. I came across another gluten-free beer just a month ago that I found in a local liquor store here, one of these big box liquor stores, right? And it's called Greens, GREENE''S, and they have a number of different ones. My favorite is their blonde ale, Greens Blonde Ale. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen in the listening audience, we get no kickback from any of these companies from promoting their products. We don't screen the calls. I have no idea what people are going to say, so we just tell it like it is here. And I think this is one of the reasons why the show is so popular, because, we're kind of unadulterated. It's the unadulterated truth, honest to God. So I appreciate that, Mary. Omission IPA, yeah?
Yes, now there is one more that even tastes better.
Oh, my God, I'm on the edge of my seat. Hit me.
It's made by Harvester Brewing.
Yep.
And it's also an IPA. And they call themselves a dedicated gluten-free brewery. The drawback here is that the fourth ingredient on their list is certified gluten-free oats, which you and I know better. But do you think that is something we need to consider in this?
I think we need to consider that because as far as I'm concerned, I would have to call them and I would have to have a conversation about them because, there is a little protein of gluten in the oatmeal grain. It's entirely possible that there's a way that they can remove that. I'd have to figure out how they did that, and I'd have to look at the process to see whether they're blowing smoke or fooling themselves. But if they did develop a process to remove that, then I'm okay with that because the gluten part of oats is a very small part of the protein. And, this is where, if I was king of the world, everything would be different because research like this would already have been done. I am of the opinion, based solely on clinical experience, that even when you remove the gluten from the oatmeal, the proteins that are left are just as difficult for your body to digest as the gluten proteins are. So, I'm really kind of on the fence when it comes to oatmeal, and I always like to err on the side of caution, right? So I'm probably going to say that because it has oatmeal in it, I'm going to pass on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I was tending. I just thought I'd find out if you knew more. And, yes, they do welcome phone calls.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll give them a shout. Do we have a number 3 on the list?
No. I think they're good. I mean, I know lots of gluten-free beers, but those are the only two that you can remember the taste after you've had them.
Well, and that's important, right? I mean, that's important because, for goodness sake, beer is one of life's delights, quite frankly. And that's been one of the hardest things for a lot of people in Longevity Nation to kind of, wrap their head around. Well, I'm okay with going gluten-free, Doc, but don't take my beer away. Well, finally, we have at least one nice runner here for Top Dog, Omission IPA, brought to us by Mary from Oregon. Mary, I appreciate your support. Keep up the good work. Ladies and gentlemen, stick around. Much more to come. We're back, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health. We're having quite a lively and robust chat here in the chat room that comes along for free with the live video stream, which is free. Check it out. You love the radio show, you're going to love even more the video stream. The Dr. Glidden Show. .tv. That's THEDRGLIDDENSHOW.TV. Minnesota's on the line. Let's go and talk to Clinton about liver spots. Hey, Clinton, what's up?
Hey, how you doing today, Dr. Glidden?
Pretty good, Clinton. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, I got a couple pieces of good news for you based upon the diagnoses that you given here in the past, and then I want to ask you, can I get some detailed information on the Cocoa Devity product and the Z-Radical product because I'm very interested in them. The one thing that I want to touch base on is the one diagnosis that you gave to one of the clients that I'm working with about his prostate. He's gotten the blood work back, and it's actually showing that this thing is starting to be reversed. So the Tangy Tangerine, the Prostafax, the Psyllium, the healthy joint pack and the Shell Shield is actually doing what it needs to do, and him staying away from the 10 bad foods is actually getting the fruit that was really desired. And so me and him was just really overjoyed with that type of information coming back. Then
well, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it great? This is This is why we do what we do. Now, remember, just to be clear here, we don't diagnose or treat things in the context of the radio program. What we do is recommend people get on board with nutritional programs, the intention of which are to support their body's ability to fix itself. Now, what you may want to pay attention to with him is what his MD says about his improvement. Because if you had dedicated your life to the service of humanity as a physician, if you'd gone through, 16 years of training to be a physician and you were, on it to help people relieve their suffering, right? And you had a patient, or you had a patient, and they had a problem with their prostate, the numbers were bad, and the numbers were accelerating, and they had bone and joint issues, and they had blood sugar issues, and whatever, and your therapeutics were not helping them. And then they did something afield from you, and it did help them, and you had the evidence in front of you. You had the before blood work, and you had the after blood work. Wouldn't you be curious and want to know what that person did? Wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
His medical doctor isn't going to care. And I want both you and he to pay particular attention moving forward here to how his medical professionals respond to his improvement. Because how they respond to people's improvement with stuff that they didn't recommend is telling about their mental state. And this is one of my most important foundation messages here. This show is called Fire Your MD Now for a reason. It's not because, we're prejudiced against them. It's not because we have an axe to grind. It's because their therapeutics don't work. And when they are faced with evidence, scientific, indefutable evidence that there's something else in the world besides what they were trained in that works, they disregard it. They bury their heads in their sand, and they are, to be shunned, in my opinion, because of this type of behavior. So pay attention to how they deal with this information moving forward. It can be very eye-opening for you.
Here's another thing, too. Last week I had spoken to you about a client that I was working with about uterine cancer. The doctors had told her that she wanted to get her tubes tied, and somehow they got to her and told her, no, you need to get in here immediately. And they started putting this fear over her, and then they brought her in, and when they brought her in, they all of a sudden told her that, you got these polyps that are cancerous and so forth. And so they referred her to a cancer center. And so she was, I had to deal with her the whole week to get her braced up to say, wait a minute, let's hold on here because you are healthy, and all of a sudden now this has happened. It doesn't make any type of sense. Well, what happened is she went to her family doctor, and when she went to the family doctor, the doctor was telling her, hey, everything looks good. Everything is, looking very good. So they ran all these different tests on her, on different parts of her body and the blood and different things. And they said, yeah, we're a little concerned with the white cells, but nothing, that would go overboard. So what happened is she was confused, and she asked her family doctor, she said, hey, I just went here to this specialist, and they told me all this, and it's totally different from what you told me. And so she's because that tells that them two weren't communicating. And then the family doctor is actually on point. She said, look, I have a chart, and this chart doesn't say that you have cancer. And so they were going to refer her out to start these treatments that would potentially kill you. And now she's wanting to request from this specialist the records, and they don't want to give her the records.
Well, that's because that's because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, right?
There you go.
That's right. And this is what happens when you're king. Right? I mean, it's a bad metaphor, but the same thing happened in the Deep South when slavery was legal, right? The slave owners treated the slaves like crap. They did whatever they wanted to with the slave, and they got away with it because they could. Well, guess what? When you own the show, when you're the king of the hill, when you're the emperor of the castle, you can do whatever you want, and nobody's hands are going to get slapped, and there's going to be no, it's a problem here, man. This is a problem. So when I from time to time, I'll have a private practice in a state in which I'm licensed. I'm currently licensed in the state of Minnesota, and I have a small medical consultation business there, and the name of my business is A Second Opinion, because everybody needs a second opinion, especially when it comes to, a big bad voodoo daddy surgical procedure that in this case they didn't even need. And yet, the doctors that made the original recommendation to have the cancer treatment, nothing's going to happen to them, because this is the way that the world goes. And honestly, man, it's just one more reason for people to fire their MDs now.
Hey, Dr. Glidden, real quick, on the Cocogevity and the Z-Radical products, is there any more detailed information besides what I've pulled up as far as the flyers and different things on the Z-Radical and Cocogevity that I can get the detailed research, that goes a little bit more in depth?
Not a lot. I did a webinar, I think it's in the archives. I did a webinar about a year ago on fucoidan, and that's the active ingredient that's in the Z-Radical. Cocogevity isn't my favorite product. If I had to lean on a longevity product that had chocolate in it, and the reason I would do that is because I'm going for the antioxidant ORAC points, right?
Right.
Hands down, what I would do is get the Triple Treat chocolate. The Triple Treat chocolate has more antioxidants in it than any other longevity nutritional supplement. Now, the problem with Triple Treat chocolate is because it's chocolate, individual squares of chocolate in the summertime, if you order it, they have to ship it in a refrigerated truck, in refrigerated packages. Otherwise, when it shows up on your doorstep, you've got, melted chocolate. So it's a little more expensive to buy the Triple Treat chocolate in the summertime just because they have to ship it in a refrigerated container. So what I do is I stock up on the Triple Treat chocolate in the fall and the winter so that I have enough to carry me through the summer months when the shipping is excessive. So if I had to make a determination, am I going to do triple truffle chocolate? Am I going to do Triple Treat chocolate? Am I going to do Cocogevity? I do the Triple Treat chocolate hands down. The Cocogevity is a fun thing to have around, especially if you've got kids, because, if you put the Cocogevity in some milk, right now you got chocolate milk and it tastes great and there's nutrients in it. You can put it on ice cream and now you've got ice cream with chocolate sauce. It tastes great and it's got nutrients in it. That's what I like to use the Cocogevity for, is kind of, kind of the icing on the cake for treats every once in a while. But hands down, man, as far as I'm concerned, Triple Treat chocolate all the way. And in a perfect world, right, in a perfect world, everybody in the world would do one bottle of Z-Radical a week. One bottle of Z-Radical a week. And that's that gets expensive, especially because it's a network marketing product. And the price points of network marketing products are higher than retail price points, and there's a good reason for that. So, look, man, you want to really be healthy? Work your longevity business up so that you can afford one bottle of Z-Radical a week. And you start doing that, you're going to see some remarkable changes pretty quickly. And the way that you're moving here, man, Clinton, I don't think it's going to be very long before you accomplish that goal. Are you going to go to the September event, Longevity September event in Vegas?
I'm pushing my way to that right now. And so there's other ideas that I'm brainstorming with my team lead to really push forward what I'm doing right now on a big scale, and I'm not going to really go into depth in that, but when it really goes forward and really happens here, then I'll release it. But real quick, and I'm going to let you go here, about the Cocogevity. One of the things that intrigued me about that product was that it had 135,000 ORAC value points in it. Am I off?
No, that's 135,000 in the bottle, right? So if you divide 135,000, I'll do it right now. I've got my calculator out. I love the computer. 135,000 by 32, right, 32 ounces in the bottle, that equals 4,000 ORAC points per ounce, 4,218 ORAC points per ounce. Now, one piece of Triple Treat chocolate has 19,000 ORAC points. So that's why the Triple Treat chocolate has way more bang for its buck. I mean, 19,000 is better than 4,000. So, that's where they should label that better, but it's 135,000 per bottle, and that's an interesting distinction to understand.
That's what my struggle was, trying to figure out how they're calculating up the ORAC value. Do you know a good site that I can go to really get that broken down in layman's terms?
Not really. You really have to muck around for it. One of the best sites I've found to help people figure out food ORAC points is oracfoodvalues.com. ORAC foodvalues, that's with an S, .com. But remember, ORAC is based upon weight and, amounts. So, if it says, cloves has 1,000,000 ORAC points, well, you have to figure out how many cloves contains that much ORAC and so forth and so on, because the weights and measures when it comes to ORAC are everything. Appreciate your call, Clinton. It's always fun to talk to you. Now get out there and change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. Check out the live stream, thedrgliddenshow.tv. Back after these words. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're coming here of your own volition, visit the website. If you're listening to the live internet stream, then visit the website, drglidden.com. Click on the link for Team Glidden and find out how you can become a member of Longevity Nation. If you're listening to this on a radio station somewhere in the United States of America, then call the number of the radio station that you're listening to in order to get information about how to get the products we talk about at the wholesale price and the business opportunity that's available to you. Also, these two things are mutually exclusive. You don't need to do both. You can just get the products and help your body to optimize its health, or you can join Longevity Nation and help us spread our message of health recovery through science-based, clinically verified nutrition. Now, if you were led to this radio program by a friend or, somebody, a living, breathing human being, and you like what we're talking about, and you want to learn more, call that person back, get with them to get your questions answered, to see how you can interface with Team Longevity. Longevity Nation worldwide. Connie from California is up next. Hey, Connie, thanks for the call. You are live.
Hi, Dr. Glidden. This is actually Madru.
Oh, hey, Madru. What's going on, Madru?
Connie had to go and pick up her grandson, so okay. I'm actually going to basically tell you exactly what she got. She's already ordered some products, but we want to be sure that we've got the right recipe, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. She went to the doctor last week, and she was told she had stage 2 breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And it actually is in the lymph nodes, and she says it's INCASION.
Yeah.
Okay. And they want her to do chemo and all that.
Well, all right, so here's what needs to happen, Madru, with everybody that's been diagnosed with cancer, okay? Mm-hmm. They need to get my book. They need to read the chapter in my book on cancer. You can download my book for $10, right? $10.
Okay.
And they need to, in my chapter for cancer, there are 10 questions that every cancer patient needs to ask their oncologist in the presence of a witness and a recording device.
Okay.
So she needs to get somebody in her family who's big. I want her to dress him in a suit. I want him to put dark glasses on him, and I want him to have one of those little things in his ear to make him look like a CIA agent.
Okay.
I want him to stand in back of her with his hands crossed across his chest, silent as a lamppost, while she is asking her oncologist politely these 10 questions with a recording device. You know, politely. And here are the questions. Well, here's a couple of them. Doctor, does your treatment cure my cancer? Number 1. Well, what's that? You say it doesn't cure my cancer? Well, if it doesn't cure my cancer, what can I expect? What are the side effects that I'm going to get from this treatment? How are you going to treat the side effects? And so forth and so on. So, you know, she needs to know, number 1, whether or not the stuff shoved down her throat by the oncologist is going to work. They're not going to tell her that. They're just going to sign her up for the treatment. They're not going to tell her how effective it is. They're not going to tell her how it's going to mess with the quality of her life or what side effects it's going to make. And they're certainly not going to tell her how much money they make unless she asks them. And then they're required to tell her. So once she or any other cancer patient asks their oncologist these 10 questions, then she will know whether or not it would be prudent and appropriate for her to move forward with conventional medical treatment. Because it either is or it isn't. And, you know, people need to be informed, and nobody is informed because nobody asks the right questions. People trust their medical doctor, and that's the stupidest thing anybody in the world can do. So, notwithstanding that, we don't treat cancer because that's illegal. You know, and in the context of this radio program and in longevity, we don't treat disease. We don't even intimate that we treat disease. We offer people nutritional support to optimize the structure and function of their bodies. My recommendation for nutritional support for her, the Anti-Aging Healthy Start Pack and selenium, appropriate for body weight, 1 bottle of Immortalium per 100 pounds of body weight per month, and as much Z-Radical as she can afford, as much Z-Radical as she can afford. This, of course, on top of elimination of the 10 bad foods. Appreciate you, Madru. Keep up the good work. Hour 2 coming up, folks. Stick around.